here, product specialist for TOA Electronics, and your host to the podcast Sound Supply, releasing every single week. That's on Monday evenings, giving you guys the most up-to-date information on commercial AV. You can find us on YouTube, Anchor, LinkedIn, and even our Facebook page. Excuse me, guys. Check us out. Thank you for attending. Stay tuned. We're about to get started. All right, guys, welcome in. Good afternoon, and welcome to our May webinar, continuing from last month about returning to the normalized workspace. This is part 2. And what we're going to be focusing on is communication. That is the key to today's webinar. So, the main collective question that we're going to answer today is, how do we ensure that our communication systems are up to date and functioning correctly to meet the changing needs of our businesses or business? And what resources or products and what services does TOA provide to make that transition much, much easier? All right, guys, if you don't know me, my name's Eric Huber. I am a product specialist here at TOA, and I am your host to the podcast Sound Supply, which we do every single Monday evening, that is, and host to these webinars, which we release at the end of the month, second to last Wednesday of the month, if I'm not mistaken. I've been here for 2 years, and it's been a great ride, especially through this transition. Let's talk about the format for today's webinar. We're going to hear from our panelists. We got 2 great guys in. They will be familiar. We're going to have a discussion, and then at the end of this, we'll have a quick Q&A based on any questions that you guys may have regarding this topic. So something new that we're trying going forward, and it's really a thank you for you guys being here and doing this with us, is we're giving you access to a brand new research piece. This one is categorized 5 ways to improve communication systems in the new workplace. This is exclusive for everybody that joins us, something new that we're trying, and we appreciate the feedback as well. And after this webinar is over, after me, Jim, and Ian, or Jimmy and I have discussion, we want to make sure you guys take away some value when it comes to listening to us. So one key is the procedures to take in preparing and rectifying unforeseen needs, reviewing the appropriate communication systems in the workspace and where each type of that application exists. And we're gonna review a couple products, and we'll cover those in today's webinar. Another one we want to tackle is the big one that I always mention in my podcast is change. Change being the key here. so many needs have changed based on our customers, based on their customers' respective feedback, and how that's combined into virtual working, going back to the office, wherever our products are used, essentially. That's what we're going to be discussing. So, a couple key things that we've noticed going forward are the increase of needs of touchless type systems. So I'm sure you guys have seen that. I mean, I walked into the office the other day, and we actually have a touchless temperature checker where you put your forehead up to it and it measures your temperature. And that, for us, that's going to be based on our intercom systems and how that need has increased to ensure a touchless type operation, right? Ways to communicate essential health information to new people entering the building. So I just gave you that example of our office, our building. This was implemented by our actual building. And so, for example, it reads my temperature. Where does that information go afterwards? Does it go to a network? Is that shared? Obviously, there's some privacy issues as well. That's behind the scenes. But these are just examples. And all in all, that's to avoid possible infections and health concerns. And then also the increasing need, like we're doing right now with these webinars, for the reliance on teleconferencing systems and everyday communications. It could be an application. It could be, we use Teams here. It could be Zoom. It could be Slack. It could be anything like that. All right, so that's enough out of me. Let me introduce our panelists. I mentioned these names you guys will recognize. Ian Weingold down in sunny South Florida. There he is. Great guy. On the sales front, on the front end. Ian's out there in the field. And then we have Jim, who I work with every day. I'll be seeing Jim tomorrow when we return to the office. Jim is our design guru and our PSG specialist. All right. So you'll hear from those guys in just a moment. Let's start here. Let's begin. Let's get this kicked off. All right. So let's go into some examples. Retailers, airports, healthcare facilities, other businesses that, if we rewind time, that scrambled, when this all happened, and we look for, they look for tools or instruments or equipment or gear to get them up to par and optimize for what was happening. So what many are quickly discovering is that most businesses already have powerful tools in place. This could be, gearing towards IP communications-based systems. We all have access to a network wherever you are. Could be McDonald's, your office, my home, anywhere. There is access to some sort of network, and that is your bridge when it comes to communication. The same technology is used for surveillance, loss prevention, access control, intercom systems, and door unlocks. The list goes on. And this all helps improve the workflow, getting from point A to point B with zero interruptions. And it's never been faster with the technology that we have. This could go to inventory control, marketing, staff training, which I'm sure many of you guys, have done. We've been doing training over the web, and we've done that prior to this. So we can actually, reach out to you guys and gain access. So let's bring Ian in first. Ian, the first question is for you. I hope you're doing pretty good today. Ian, what are the conversations that you're having with clients right now? And what TOA products are you discussing from an IP communications perspective? Ian?
Well, if we want to focus on an IP-based set of solutions, I'd say the top three conversations that I'm having would be, in one case, on the educational front, where, particularly down here in South Florida, after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas matter that occurred, right, access control and perimeter surveillance types of applications are coming up on that security side. So I think of a product like our NSP80 as a simple intercom solution to make sure that you're able to manage the ingress and egress from your facility. While it may not be touchless, right, a single button to the front activates either speaker and camera. And then that camera can be tied into a larger overall CCTV system that may be getting deployed. And when I mention a perimeter, schools can be quite large. So when you start dealing with outdoor areas, the ability to then page out either manually or by piggybacking on some of the technology available today in the closed circuit TV networks, right? Those security cameras can detect motion, and that motion detection can lead to a string of commands that then has our IP horn respond with a nice loud, broad range of coverage to be able to get a message out to a remote area. So, IP is quite heavy in the security end, and products like our intercom and our IP horn certainly play in that space. But when we look at even just, getting back to work, one of the things that people are after is a level of efficiency that they've come to expect today. We can all order groceries and have them delivered same day. So why do I need to wait for a service call if I don't think my amplifier or my mixer is working correctly? And so we've got products like our new A800 series mixer amplifiers with that LAN connection, so that you could have maybe remote troubleshooting taken care of quickly, easily, efficiently, and maybe a lower cost than having to wait for someone to come out and physically determine what's happening within your facility. So a number of our products are moving towards having that LAN port provided. And then certainly, listen, what we're doing right now with these webinars, even though we're getting back to work and everybody's expecting going back to normal, it's going to be a new normal, right? We're going to be able to conduct these sorts of webinars and have our outreach from, any corporate communications center. So having products like our AM CF1, which we call the Lenubio, right? That's a great microphone solution with an integrated USB hub to be able to get your webinar connected quickly and easily. But that product's also got that LAN port. So I can go in and I can interrogate the product and I can set it up specifically for my particular room needs, right? Am I in a 20 by 20 room, or am I in a small 10 by 10 room? Is it a deeper room? Is it a shallower but a wider room? So we can get in and we can configure that product to conduct the best webinars possible. So that's a couple of the products that seem to come up fairly consistently in the conversations I'm having with our clients.
Awesome, Ian. Yeah, and it's all about being connected. All those examples are fantastic. And you mentioned a product that I want to bring Jim in to discuss real quick. Jim, Ian mentioned our new A800D series units. Let's talk about some of the benefits on how powerful that network access, actually is in terms of remote support.
Well, sure. A lot of times we'll get calls into our PSG group, yourself, Eric, included, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. So we have to go through, quite the litany of questions to see what is the direction of the problem, because of course, a lot of times the end users don't have the same terminology that we use in our business. So we have to kind of interpolate between what they're saying and how that actually correlates to, exact problems that we see in the field. So having the Ethernet port on there, and of course the permission through the client to access their device, now allows us to go in and see firsthand without 50 questions. Now maybe we can reduce it to 10 questions, that type of thing.
Right.
As I say, with some of our complex systems out there, I excuse myself a lot of times. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you probably 50 questions before I can get to a point where I can say, oh, turn screw number 2 and it'll be better. But it's getting to that point. That's the time consuming portion of our job. So once we have the parameters properly understood, then usually we can, drill down on exactly what the problem is and suggest, testing methods or adjustments that can be made. And if I'm live in the box through the Ethernet port on whichever platform we're working, the A800 series plus others, now I can go in, make a couple of changes, and then ask the client, how is it responding now? Is it doing what you want it to do, et cetera, and so forth. And one of the other things I always have to bring up is, had the system worked properly to start with, meaning that when it was originally installed, was it working the way you expected? Or are you calling in to say, well, never quite had it set up this way or that way, or it's truly got an issue going on now. So there's a number of questions that we have to kind of drill down on so that we can ultimately get, the client in the direction that they want to go and satisfied all the way around. Because obviously we want them satisfied to take a look at our future products and our names on it. So we have a very vested interest to make it all happen.
Thanks, Jim. All excellent points. Thinking about it, while integrators and projects are starting to pick up, we have to keep in mind that their customers or our customers are facing brand new challenges, right? And in this new world where remote work has become ubiquitous, each organization at the end of the day needs to decide for themselves, what type of work style or what type of integration style will work. And we're just giving you guys the tools out there to succeed. And with network access, it's never been easier. This goes out to both Ian and Jim. You guys can crisscross here. What challenges do you think end user technology managers and integrators, so these are maybe the guys that are head of tech at a specific location or integrators, what new challenges do you think they're facing in their new workplace or their installation workplace? Anything that might come to mind that kind of evolved from the situation?
Well, there are certainly a lot of challenges. Coming back, it seems to me that the just the restarting of operations by itself becomes sort of a daunting task, right? We haven't really been on site. And listen, just like what TOA did, a lot of companies have taken advantage of this shift in their personnel being off-site to make a move, to go to a new location, right? So talk about a daunting task. Now you're looking at starting from the ground level. And that means there are a ton of conversations to have. Security definitely seems to be on the top of a lot of people's conversations, certainly in the aspect of cybersecurity, but certainly also in physical security. And when you're trying to look at how you're combining your safety efforts across multiple offices or a larger expanse, where you're deploying cameras and where you're not, because there certainly are privacy concerns to be aware of. But one of the factors that we actually talked about this a little bit in one of the previous segments. One of the issues that I think is going to be coming up are welcoming back all of your employees, right? Once they come on back and they start seeing everybody again, you've really got to develop the level of camaraderie between your employees. And I've actually gotten a few calls here now. Interesting that they're all the sort of the same project definition, which is we want to take our meeting space or our break room, and we really want to take more advantage of that, right? We don't want our employees coming back to be separated again into their individual cubicles. We really want it to foster that working spirit and the friendship aspect. So, we've had requests for some small sound systems, just a couple of microphones, some overhead speakers, tying in for, Friday pizza party days where, the president or vice president or a sales manager can come in and can address everybody and take advantage of the space that, that's typically sitting there unused. So I think from a practical standpoint, there is a desire to utilize these underutilized spaces, but at the same time, foster the relationship with your employees a little bit better. And, we can do that really so cost effectively. We could talk about, we don't have to necessarily talk about IP here, Eric, but just something like a small BG series amplifier with a slot-in wireless microphone and a couple of RCAs tied into an iPod player or a smartphone, makes all the difference in having another useful space within the, certainly within a small corporate facility.
Yeah, good.
Our
points, Jim, yeah.
fits that really well because you have all the inputs that you need to, facilitate these small systems. And they can be all standalone. And if you want to go from a network standpoint, of course, use our new A800D series so that they can be tied to a network and controlled elsewhere if necessary. But our package amps, cover that very well, along with also our wireless mics to make it easy for everybody.
Yeah, guys, both excellent points. And Ian, going back to you, those are some good examples. The way that companies are going to be using existing space and using commercial AV to integrate it and optimize it and make it fun, make it engaging and people miss that connection, that camaraderie, that friendship. Those are all great points, excellent points. Jim, let's press on to we were mentioning intercom briefly going forward.
Sure.
In terms of our and if you can keep the idea of touchless entry in the back of your mind, remember talking about this. I think we'll get some good ideas here. But our NSP80 system, so if I'm not mistaken, it has some sort of this functionality. Let's talk a little bit about how clients are designing systems going forward when it comes to touchless based systems, and what considerations or what do we have to have in mind to make sure we make that happen?
I think the biggest thing is to figure out what is our trigger point, right? For a system, touchless. Is it going to be some sort of, camera trigger? Is it going to be some sort of an IR trigger, that's mounted on a wall? It could be even, almost old school, like you go to a grocery store for the automatic door openers, you could be standing on a pad, right? Which is a trigger point. So it's usually, what is the point for call up? So you come to a door, obviously we've done, push buttons as many have done, but to take it to that next level, the camera can automatically, trigger event, which then can integrate into our intercom. It could be, IR, as I said. So that has to be defined from the client side usually first, and then we look at, how do we integrate that into our system through either direct connection or IP protocol or contact relay, that type of thing. And that's starting to, come to light now with, everybody, COVID in the back of their minds. How do we, not touch something to, spread disease and germs or whatever? And, I think it'll go forward that way as time marches on. Because, look at the flu this past year. There was almost no mention of it, very little outbreak because everybody was triggered on, locking down for COVID and putting on masks, et cetera. It shows you what a difference it makes for not spreading a disease. So in that light, if we make more things, contactless, then it's better for all of us going forward.
awesome information, Jim. Yeah, those trigger examples, even like the old school doormat, we used to go into. I haven't seen those in a long time. Now they're just the IR sliding base units, but yeah, sure. Those are all good points. All right, guys, pressing forward, getting back to communication, that being the essential need for our equipment in general. But using solutions going in the terms of message repeaters where, like Jim said, triggering can be involved, the IP horn, like you said, Ian, where a trigger can also be involved to initiate an output there. Any other examples? And these are all, you guys have already listed excellent examples on all these. Any other examples you guys can think of? You mentioned retail, maybe an office versus a warehouse where a touchless trigger type based system would be used. Ian, we could start with you. Any other examples you could think of?
One factor that comes up, this is not really a trigger, okay. But if you've seen some of the nicer amphitheater styled classrooms for higher ed universities.
Yeah.
Today you can put a PTZ, a pan tilt zoom camera in the ceiling that will automatically track and follow the speaker, which is nice, right? That's now done automatically. You don't have to assign someone with a camera to record that class. The camera will automatically do that. Now, what happens with audio? Well, certainly we could have a wireless microphone on the professor themselves, but there's often a lot of Q&A. Now, in the past, many times you would get up from a seat and you would walk over to a microphone, or someone would pass you a microphone. And once again, we're trying to keep things more touchless. Mm. So really slick products like our beamforming microphone, the AM1, we call it the Amio. Now, those also now have ceiling and wall mount options. So rather than placing 16, 20, 24 individual ceiling mics, we could get away with, say, that same space, only 4 or 6 of our Amios covering an entire amphitheater area. And when someone's got a question, right from where they're sitting, they just begin speaking. That beamforming mic tracks, zooms right in on the individual speaker. So much like that camera pans and tilts and zooms and follows a professor, those ceiling microphones over the student seating location are able to automatically track the voice for really nice, clean pickup. So that's another area where I think we're finding, rather than using the term contactless, I would just really say more automated functionality. On the flip side, Jim and I were just working on kind of an interesting project, which was a warehouse, a factory floor. Okay. And the machinery there today has become very, very smart. So if one of the robots or some other machine enters into some kind of a fail state, there's a problem, there's a gear issue or some other problem, the machine itself self-reports back what that problem is, and it sends that out as an IP command or an IP set of strings. Well, we can take that in, have our message repeater that automatically state error on robot 17 in the automobile paint area, and have that automatically paged out. So that's pretty machine cool. Reports back problem, we turn that into a particular message trigger, that then goes out to an IP horn or some other horn that's immediately calling out to the repair shop area so that someone from there knows to head on out to the factory floor for repair. So there's all these factors of just automation that are happening. And you guys all know that I've been a huge fan of the 9000 series matrix mixer because of the RS-232 port and the ability to turn an iPad into a simple controller. But that's another wonderful factor, right? Any instructor could walk in with their own iPad and take control over a room by implementing these sorts of IP-based or simply command-based control systems. And so much TOA product is able to harness that type of automation functionality today.
Excellent. Jim, did you want to say something, Jim? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in. I was going to mention that, so thanks for that, Ian. On that same light, talking about Touchless, we can use our EV products. We have the smaller EV20R, up to 4 messages in there, and that could be set up for automated response, when somebody comes up to a door, that type of thing. It could be instructional, it could be warnings, that type of thing. Our EV700 has the ability to record over 30,000 snippets if you want to go that far, and you can basically put together phrases and sentences if you want. Otherwise, you can record standard recordings and do something similar, but there we have several hundred possible programs that you can play out by BCD coding. So again, all based on computer automation and what you send to the box, but it can be part of a contactless system, whether it be warning or notification, as we had in this warehouse application, or for any other use that comes up.
Yeah, these are all good examples, guys. Things that we just don't think about that we already have available that can be integrated for touchless-based solutions. Jim, I'm going to keep you on the hook here. Let's go in the route of design and, more importantly, teleconferencing. So, as you know, with travel restrictions and things like that, and I know things are getting a little bit looser, but I don't see any decline in teleconferencing and virtual-based conferencing, sort of like the webinar we're doing right now, whatsoever. How has when focusing on teleconferencing, it could be Zoom rooms, it could be huddle rooms, it could be personal stations, it could be whatever. But with that as the focus, how has in terms of the ways you approach a design when it comes to thinking about those things, teleconferencing being the main form of communication or a very crucial form of communication when you're designing a space, is that always in the back of your mind is kind of where I'm leaning towards going forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime we're talking some sort of a meeting space, we want to ask, how's it to be used, right? So is this going to be just a local type of application, or is this going to be for teleconference? And usually the answer is it's going to be both, right? So in this day and age, they don't request one or the other. They want something that's combined. So in that light, as we spoke before of our array systems, Lenubio, our bar system, is a perfect solution because for many applications, whether it be huddle room or a meeting room, this particular unit works very well for pickup. It will track the person. And we're currently working on other tracking technologies integrated with partners to work with cameras as well. So there's some exciting things that we're taking a look at coming down the pike in working with Lenubio or Amio or our microphone. Bigger applications, we may actually put 2 of those together. We'll put an Amio at the far end where it's kind of extended room length and marry that into Lenubio to get some more distance. But either way, it's a great solution because it's active tracking, right? So what better to pick up in a room than something that actively tracks you, as opposed to having multiple microphones and therefore a mixer that has to drive that, set levels. So there's a lot of different parameters about that. It all depends again on what the client wants, but it gets away from like I say, the multiple mics or multiple hanging ceiling mics and that type of thing. We put 1 or 2 items in a room and you're pretty well covered. And what you can do that It can be set up for local, it can be set up for teleconferencing. It's whatever you want to do at that point.
Very cool. All right, guys, one final question for both of you guys. Very simply, to the point. Ian and Jim, what are the most common issues that you're seeing in the market right now, today, regarding communication systems, audio systems? What comes right to your minds? And then how are you guys, both you guys, being different fields, even though we all have the same goal, creating solutions using TOA products? Either one of you guys can come in.
Well, we do talk about this a lot. What are the different calls coming? What are the different requests?
Right.
If I had to kind of just put it into an overall nutshell, it seems to me that we're constantly chasing a desire for multiple functions to be able to come together, rather than a purpose-built product designed to do one thing. So, we sometimes that's the beauty of our module design in every one of our mixer amplifiers, right? That, okay, I started off with a room to do purpose A, but now 5 years later, wouldn't it be nice to add in a wireless microphone? Great, we can put in a wireless microphone module and add in that functionality. Or as Jim mentions, a paging system could then expand into some automatic message repeating. Or you take that same background sound system and you decide that we've implemented a new phone system. We've gotten rid of our old analog phone system and we've now gone to a SIP system. Do I have to start all over again? Right? The answer is no. You just add in an SP11 module, and now your SIP intercom or your SIP phone system can then tie in. And of course, these new SIP phone systems can offer some great versatility as far as tying in cellular phones and personal phones onto those networks as well, which means you can potentially make a page from your cell phone if you tie into the network within the facility. Likewise, when putting in sound systems in schools, I used to have your small auditorium sound system or gymnasium or cafetorium, but with this desire to have more security going on, you can tie your intercom and paging system into a more traditional sound system by using a TOA piece that offers priority and ducking capability. So it seems to me that whenever I get, a request for something, hey, I'm interested in a cool set of speakers, inevitably that also becomes a need for the right amplifier, and then the right mixer, and then all of the actual functionality that the customer really wants to put in starts to get discussed. And I think that's where and certainly where Jim, I know, gets really involved in trying to get away from a product versus really providing a solution that's going to be able to grow and expand as all these functions constantly change. You mentioned video conferencing, right? You could start off with a video conferencing in a small office, and with a Lenubio, with the additional auxiliary outs, we could run that into an additional amplifier with bigger speakers and cover a much larger space. Or as Jim mentioned, for a larger space, add some amnios and tie them into a mixer into the Lenubio. So whatever we're discussing with our clients, I think we're trying to always focus on making sure that this is the same product that you're going to want to have in there in 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years as needs change. And that comes, again, back to what I said to start this, right? Our modular design allows us to remove a line input and change that to a wireless input or a SIP interface or an ATA interface. And there's more modules to come.
Sure. And to jump in on that, all excellent points, Ian. Thanks. And if we take a look at what we've spoken about in some previous webinar sessions, the 9000, as we call it, the Swiss Army knife of figuring stuff out. That unit will stand alone as a system, but because of all the control capabilities on their multiple access, points, from contact closures to serial remotes to RS-232s, all being active at the same time, it becomes a core point for a lot of systems. It's really a wonderful go-to product. But then we can add to that, what if we add in, our intercom systems or some of our other audio systems? We can build and expand on a lot of this stuff, so long as the core piece that we put in first makes the most sense. So we always want to ask the questions to the contractors, the integrators, and ultimately the end user. And we have to think about it ourselves when designing that, what if, 6 months down the road, they want to add this or that. And we know by experience, this often happens. So sometimes we'll suggest certain products so that expandability is in the can, ready to go. And then we add a module, or we make adjustment or a program change, and everything happens pretty seamlessly. But this is also the case with our intercom. You can call it the Swiss Army knife of stuff. You can add more boxes and more boxes. Our standard intercom system expands out to over 3,000 stations. I mean, it can be quite an immense system if you want, and our SIP goes very far as well. So it really, you can build as you go. If you want, start out at a certain size. If you're going to expand later, just make sure you have the core pieces in place. Makes it simple to do the expansion later.
Jim and Ian, you guys are the best. Excellent points. You pretty much summed up this entire webinar to the best of your ability when it comes to flexibility and adaptability and change and the ability to grow. These are all things that we keep in mind. Jim as a designer, Ian in sales, myself in PSG. When we're doing these things for you guys, and it's what we're getting back from you guys and then your customers, and that all comes together. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure everybody is happy there. All right, guys. Let's begin with the Q&A. Let's get started. I hope you guys have questions. We'll check the chat and make sure we can answer them to the best of our ability. And if we can't, we'll always get back to you. So stay tuned and let's go. All right. Thanks, Jim and Ian. Much appreciated. It is getting cold in here, so I threw a jacket on. All right, guys, let's check the chat and see if we have any questions. If not, I have a question for both of you guys. And I don't see anything right away. Thank you guys for attending. If you guys have any questions, let us know. I'm going to start this off and ask, pretty much carry off on what both Ian and Jim said about growth and the way we design and implement systems with that in mind, that in the back of our minds at all times, especially today with so much change. Jim, scalability is where I'm kind of going with on this. And I do see some questions coming in. We'll get to those in just a moment. But Jim, when you're designing, the beauty of our products is the ability to scale, right? Like how cool is that? Like we can, to me, there is no, I mean, yes, there's limitations, but we have so many options, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it all depends on what platform we're working on, right? So if we're talking intercom as one example, we have several options there for standard intercom versus SIP intercom systems with video integration as well. As far as the mixer side of things, we have a number of different mixer platforms, 9000, as we mentioned previously, our Swiss Army knife, but we have higher level mixers as well, D901, D2000s that can do other things that the 9000 can't do. There's a litany of products that we have that can be scaled. Look at NX100. So now you have, let's say, a large campus and you need to get audio from point A to point B. You can't run wires very easily through conduit across large open areas. So you're typically on a network. NX100, NX300 fits that bill perfectly because you can add in so many points, dozens of points, in fact, to scale audio to different places, either for paging or bi-directional communication. There's a lot we can do there. So it's an important thing to think forward for expandability and what a client may be looking to do in the future. And you got to ask those questions.
Yep. Ian, you want to piggyback off that?
I just think about TOA just from the core essence of products that we've developed from the very beginning based on modules.
Yep.
And the entire purpose of going to the modules is so that you customize your system for exactly what you need today, but you've got additional space to add on, dozens of different conceivable options in there just to do some simple expansion. So yeah, all of TOA's products have always had this concept of being able to expand in mind. And look, now we're piggybacking on all this IP technology. There's a lot of addresses we can now choose from.
I think it's important for the customer, the end user as well, to know that if they have the option to change, to remove, to add, to expand, to optimize, like it's always there, which I think is a very powerful tool. And that just builds confidence,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick question from somebody in a chat. Do you guys, both of you guys, and myself as well, do we think remote office work or any kind of remote occupational activity is here to stay? And how does that affect future projects? Ian, maybe you can pick up on this since.
Well, I've worked from a remote office for most of my business career, going back to 2000 or 2002 thereabouts. So the remote office is definitely here. It's definitely here to stay. Is it going to be the same, en masse as we had during COVID? I think a lot of folks are going back to the office. You guys are heading back to the office, but we're going to have a lot more flexibility as far as whether or not we really have to be in the office every day, several times a week. Certainly when it comes to sales folks like myself that are covering regions, if not, even national territories, the ability to communicate the way that we do today is fantastic. That back in the day, we used to have these little things we would wear on our belt called a pager.
Yes, I never had one of those, but I am familiar.
And look where we are today, right? It's fun.
Beeper.
Beeper.
Jim,
Pager, yeah.
Well, I think Lenubio fits into that world pretty well, right? So whether you're in a business location, I would take the home space as kind of like the local huddle room version, if you know what I'm saying. And it gives quite a presence over a standard, video, like a standard camera that you would use on top of your display or integrated audio into a computer system. So it gives you much more dynamic, much better sound, clearer. So I think that type of product going forward will certainly continue to expand and to evolve. It'll change again, and more features, more additions as time goes on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What the fact of the matter is, in the business community right now, also they're developing all current and new office space to have some sort of a video connection in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think even gone are the days of going to the video room. Everybody's room is going to be interconnected. There's no doubt about that.
Agreed. All right, guys, another question here. What should integrators be watching out for as offices? We'll stick to the office subject here, since that's what we're focusing on. What should they be watching out for as offices start to reopen? And are there any landmines or obstacles per se? Any guys?
Jim, you want to take that one? Landmines.
Landmines. Well, in our own office, we've been away for 15 months. And of course,
Good
in
example.
the process, we've moved. So there's a lot of landmines right now as far as, set up and reset up and that type of thing. But even for businesses who haven't changed their space, some systems might have been shut down for a period of time. They have to be checked to make sure they come back up and run properly. Some systems, hopefully would have, programming that wouldn't be erased after a period of time, but some equipment won't retain its programming until it's, powered up every so many days or weeks. So things have to be checked, quality, make sure that, even change in personnel within the company, within the location, they may have to review or take a look at how things work again. You forget after a while, right? So you're away from the office for a year, you might forget how some of the systems work in some cases. And then just getting back into, regular workspace area and using the equipment that you're used to using in a workspace area, as opposed to kind of an at-home huddle room situation. So it's a full checkout, when you get back to the office to make sure that everything's up and running. You don't know what's happened, things in a building could have changed, you're in maybe a large building and, work was done during that time. You don't know whether all your systems are up and running, so they have to be checked.
Yeah, we just got, I've been suddenly sort of immersed in a rash of requests for wireless microphone systems. And here we're now in a situation where folks have been maybe out of schools for the better part of a year, if not longer. And they're starting to realize as they fire up some of their gear where they've got wireless microphones, they're out of FCC compliance. They're not operating on a correct frequency spectrum anymore. And spectrum is getting tighter and tighter as the FCC sold off a whole lot of wireless microphone space. So right now is also going to be the right time to check the frequencies that you're working under and make sure that they're still valid and not out of compliance. And then start to look at products like our digital 5000 series, where we can really take the best advantage possible of the remaining spectrum that's available for wireless microphones. And it is getting tight out there, but we can definitely help on that front with some very good cost-effective systems to come back and replace outdated and possibly outmoded wireless microphones.
That's a good point, Ian, because, while we were away on the pandemic thing, it was July 13th, 2020 that the FCC's rollout completed. So all the microphones that have been out there, a lot of end users, even contractors may or may not be aware that their equipment is not in compliance. And the fines on that stuff are quite hefty.
They can be,
yeah. Large dollars. So you want to make sure that you're in compliance, and it's time to really take a look at that stuff. So your point with the schools and being away for a while is a good point. Yeah. Because that kind of snuck in there. I mean, it's been publicized for a long time, but being in the home front, you're not thinking about that stuff. You're not using wireless, in the school rooms and sports venues, and so now you come back and you find out, oh, my equipment's not in compliance,
Right.
Kind of thing. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, excellent points. All right, guys, one more quick question. Somebody asked in terms of small offices, let's say, like Jim mentioned, gone for 10 months, 15 months, you come back, you do a walkthrough, and you're looking for an upgrade, optimization on a limited budget. What is the first thing you would recommend for a small office setting? I'm kind of leaning towards web conferencing and Lenubio, but Ian or Jim, what can you suggest for a small office, limited budget, looking to upgrade or looking to optimize? Where are you going to first?
Yeah, several of the things that we talked about in this webinar, right? Certainly want to make sure that your security is where it needs to be. So having something like your intercom system to control your door access is always going to be very, very useful. And a product like our SP80 is very, very simple to install, works very, very nicely, It's very expandable. So, grows into the potential future uses that you might have. And then certainly in conference rooms, you just can't beat a product like Nubio to round out a conference room for your video conferencing needs. It's going to be very, very important.
Excellent. Jim, anything you want to add? Or did Ian?
I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, we can add in the A800D, to stay on the Ethernet connection lane, that type of thing. But
for doing background music or paging or another application, of course, it does come up in the office space, Jim. I know you're quite good at this, would be noise masking.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, sure. It could be, a different take on how do we want to do meetings these days, and whether they're, meetings that need to have certain level of privacy. Do we need to put in noise masking in and around those meeting rooms if it hadn't been there before, or if it's not working presently? Maybe something isn't working as expected. So all that needs to be checked.
Right.
Excellent, guys. All right, guys, it's almost at the hour. Once again, Jim and Ian, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Always great to have you.
Thank you.
And attendees, if you know somebody that wants to watch this or rewatch, we will be posting this on our YouTube channel. Remember, we have access, or give you guys access to all of our past webinars and podcasts, which we do. Remember, podcasts are every Monday, which I host, and webinars are second to last Wednesday of every single month. If you guys have any questions, you see our emails listed right here on our little screens here. You can reach out to us directly. You can give us a call. Anybody on the team will help out. We look forward to helping you guys throughout this process, this transitional phase. We know the education field is going to be a big step coming up through these summer months and into the academic year. We have some podcasts on that coming up, by the way. So we're here to help. Make sure you reach out to us when you need to. And as always, thanks again. Thank you, Jim and Ian. And we will see you next time. Guys, have a great day and take care. Be safe.